Well, friends, once again I welcome you for my class on a Smith orthogonalization technique. Friends, you know that in my previous class I gave you the a brief introduction about the Hermitian operator, and I have discussed the various properties of Hermitian operators, and we have derived two important theorems, and you see that uh, the first theorem we derived that the eigenvalue of Hermitian operators are always real, and the second theorem which we have discussed that the two eigenfunction, any two eigenfunction of a Hermitian operator, if they belong to the different eigenvalues, right? That means if these two eigenfunctions are non-degenerate, then these two eigenfunctions are always orthogonal to each other. Now, the problem is that if you consider the two eigenfunctions of the Hermitian operators, and suppose if these two eigenfunctions belongs to the same eigenvalue, I mean to say that these two eigenfunctions are degenerate. So now the problem is that if you have the Hermitian operator and the any two eigenfunctions belong to the same eigenvalue, that means they have the same eigenvalue means they are degenerate, then these two eigenfunctions may not be orthogonal to each other. So we would like to understand a procedure to orthogonalize these two eigenfunctions. So there is a method proposed by Smith. Basically, the name is Graham Smith, and he proposed a method to orthogonalize the two eigenfunctions. So this method is referred as Smith orthogonalization procedure in quantum mechanics. So this method we are applying for twofold degeneracy. This I will discuss what you mean by twofold degeneracy, because we have two eigenfunctions of the Hermitian operator, and these two eigenfunctions are having the same eigenvalue. So there are two eigenfunctions, they are degenerate, that's why we consider two degeneracy, twofold degeneracy. And now let us understand the process of orthogonalization of such eigenfunctions which are not orthogonal to each other. So first of all, let us consider here that I have a two eigenfunctions. I consider the eigenfunction psi I, right? And I consider the eigenfunction psi j. These are the two eigenfunctions of operator A. But operator A is the Hermitian operator. And we have studied the property of the Hermitian operator. So this psi I is the eigenfunctions of the operator A. Psi j is also a eigenfunction of operator A, and they are having the same eigenvalue. They are degenerate. So if they are having a same eigenvalue, then we can write our eigenvalue equation corresponding to the eigenfunction psi I and corresponding to the eigenfunction psi j. So you see I wrote an equation here that A operating on the eigenfunction psi I is equal to some constant that is the eigenvalue of the operator A. You see this eigenvalue of the operator. So A psi I. And similarly, I wrote the another equation. The psi j is also a eigenfunction of an operator A having the value A. The same eigenvalue. The eigenvalue of psi I mean the eigenfunction for corresponding eigenfunction psi I is A, and the eigenvalue is also this eigenvalue A is also the eigenvalue of the eigenfunction psi j. So this is the two eigenvalue equation is known to you. And now the first thing is that what you do, first you take a linear combination of your eigenfunction psi I and psi j. So you got another eigenfunction. So now you can see that I am taking a linear combination of psi I and psi j. These two eigenfunctions may not be orthogonal to each other because they are degenerate, and these are the two eigenfunctions of the Hermitian operator having the eigenvalue small a. So I take the linear combination here. I take C1 psi I plus C2 psi j, where C1 and C2 are some constant, and here I'm considering real constants. You should take the real. So this C1 and C2 are real here, and I'm taking psi k. Psi k is the as a linear combination of the two eigenfunctions psi I and psi j, which are a degenerate eigenfunction of the Hermitian operator. Now you see, we will verify whether a psi k is the eigenfunction of your Hermitian operator A or not. So it's very simple. You write down operator A is operating on psi k. So your this is the Hermitian operator operating on psi k. So now you have an operator A, and the psi k I can write down equal to C1 psi I plus C2 psi j. So your operator A is operating, Hermitian operator is a linear operator. So you see, I'm using the property of linear operator. So this is C1 A operating on psi 1 plus C2 A operating on psi j. It's very simple. And now you see A operating on psi 1 is A psi I. So I write down A psi I. A operating on psi j. Look at this. A operating on psi j. Eigenvalue equation for eigenfunction psi j is A psi j because they are degenerate. They have the same eigenvalue. So this is C1 A psi I plus C2 A psi j. So let us rearrange. You see, you can take A common because A is the number. So I am taking A psi k is equal to some constant at A, that is eigenvalue A, C1 psi I plus C2 psi j, and this is your eigenfunction psi k itself. So you see again you have the eigenvalue equation. A operating on psi k is equal to the eigenvalue A, and once again the same way, same eigenfunction is reproduced here. You see this. So you have a three eigenvalue equation. You see A operating on psi I, A operating on psi j, A operating on psi k. So psi I, psi j, and psi k, all three are the eigenfunctions of the operator A, right? They have the same eigenvalue, belonging to the same eigenvalue. So now you can see here, that's why I wrote here, psi k is also a eigenfunction of the Hermitian operator with the same eigenvalue. Now what we will do, the Gram-Smith has suggested that you consider, you assume that psi k is orthogonal to psi I, because we want to orthogonalize. So if you want to orthogonalize, if psi k, I would say, if psi k is orthogonal to psi I, and you consider that it is a normalized wave function. So this is a condition for a Smith orthogonalization method, that the wave function, that the eigenfunction psi k, which you have designed, which you have defined, you have to consider first, make it orthogonal, if it is orthogonal, because we want to orthogonalize. So I first consider a condition that let this, the psi k is orthogonal to psi I, not psi j. I consider here psi k is orthogonal to this eigenfunction psi. There are two eigenfunctions, psi and psi j. I assume first that your psi k is orthogonal to psi I, and your eigenfunction psi k, which you have designed, I mean, is a normalized wave function. So you see the norm, the eigenfunction, and you take the scalar product of an eigenfunction by with itself is equal to 1. So then the norm of the eigenfunction is 1. So this psi k is a normalized eigenfunction, and psi k is orthogonal to the I would say it's an orthonormal. It is it is perpendicular as well as having the normalized, having the norm is 1. So we assume that psi k is orthogonal to psi I. So the scalar product, if they are orthogonal to psi I, the scalar product of psi k with psi I is 0. This is basically a bracket notation. So I wrote here a bracket notation here, and this is also a bracket notation of eigenfunction psi k, and you take its scalar product with itself is equal to 1. So this is basically the norm is equal to 1. So these two conditions we are having, and using these two conditions, using these two condition, we will proceed further. So you see here, here what we will do, first of all, uh, you see that condition gives first condition, the scalar product of psi I with psi k is equal to 0. So I take this first condition. So when I take the first condition, so this condition is giving me the scalar product of I with psi k is equal to 0. So now I use the notation of integral notation, right? This is the integral notation of a scalar product, the bracket notation. So I take a scalar product of psi I with psi k. So you see I get psi I. So this is psi I star psi k theta. So you have to integrate this integration. The integrand is psi I star psi k theta. So I'm keeping psi I star as it is. So you see psi I star it is. And you have a psi k. Psi k is a linear combination of psi I and psi j. So I write down C1 psi I plus C2 psi j d tau. This you can see here, right? And now simplify this integration, and by because we integrate with respect to d tau. D tau is the volume element. We take in 3 dimension. You see here, and that's why now I simplify this integration, and using the linear property of the operator, you can write down into two parts. This integrand can be write in two parts. So C1 psi I star psi I d tau, and you can see here C2 psi I star psi j d tau. If you expand this, I mean, if you open this parenthesis, you will get these two terms. And now you know that your psi I is a normalized wave function. Please remember here the condition is here. You see, when we wrote this equation, the eigenvalue equation, I said that psi I and psi j are the normalized eigenfunction. Please consider that psi I and psi j are the normalized eigenfunction of the Hermitian operator A. So psi I is a normalized, psi j is a normalized function, and psi k is also normalized eigenfunction. Okay, so now you know that conditions, once you know this condition with you, and now you can see this integration, and that's why you see this integration. The first integration, the integrand is mod psi I square, and this is mod psi I square. And because you see I wrote this condition, this is the condition of a normalization, and because psi I is normalized, so we get this norm is 1. So C1 into 1 is C1, and this is C2, and this is simply nothing but a scalar product of psi I with psi j. Right? This is simply nothing but a scalar product of psi I with psi j. So I wrote this in a bracket notation. So I wrote C2, and this integration is replaced by a notation which is representing a scalar product of psi I psi j, and right? So C1 plus C2 psi I psi j is equal to 0. So we have calculated constant C1 in terms of C2. That constant C1 is equal to minus C2 into bracket we have the, I'm sorry, you have the scalar product of psi I psi j. So the scalar product of psi I psi j multiplied by constant C2 with minus sign, that is equal to C1. And now let us go for the other condition which we are having. The condition is that the scalar product of psi k with itself is 1, that is psi k is normalized. So using this condition, we will find out the constant C2. So now we will find for the constant. So you see, I have the second condition that the norm of psi k is 1. So you see that I can write down this bracket notation in the integration form. So this is minus infinite to plus infinite psi k star psi k d tau is equal to 1. Now you put the value of psi k. Psi k is a linear combination of psi I and psi j. So C1 psi I plus C2 psi j star into C1 psi I plus C2 psi j d tau. So this is basically I have substituted the value of psi k here. I have substituted the value of psi k here, and the value of integration is 1. So now you have this integration, the integration, and this is the integrand. This is the entire bracket with a complex conjugate here because I have a psi k star. So this is psi k and whole raised to psi. Now let us simplify this bracket. So you can see if you take this complex conjugate of this C1, C1 star, and C1 is real, so that becomes C1. And psi I star, so that is psi I star, complex conjugate of the eigenfunction psi I. C2 star, C2 is real, so we have a C2, and psi j star, that is I'm writing psi j star. So this is the step which you can understand now, and I'm keeping this step as it is. C1 psi I plus C2 psi j, d tau is the element, volume element is equal to 1, right? And now you can see, I can write down this part. You can see, let us simplify these two brackets. So now you see this C1 and C1 gives you C1 square and psi I star psi I. So you get the first term when you open these two bracket. So you get the first term C1 square, and this first integration is psi I star psi I d tau. Then I have the second term. This C1 will this term multiply by with this. So this is C1 C2, C1 C2, and this is psi I star is multiplied by this. You see this psi I star psi j. So you get a C1 C2, right? And you have an integration psi I star psi j d tau. Now you have the term of constant C2 psi. So now the third term is C2 C1. You see C2 C1 and integration of psi j star psi I. So integration of psi j star psi d tau. And the final term is C2 into C2, that is C2 square, right? And integration of psi j star psi j d tau is equal to 1. Now please remember that psi I is a normalized eigenfunction. So this is a norm of psi I, right? Integration of psi I star, that is mod psi I square. So this is giving you 1. This integration value is 1 because the norm of this is giving you the norm of psi I, and psi I is normalized. So this is 1. So we have a C1 square. Now look at this C1 C2 to C1 C2. Please remember psi I and psi j are not orthogonal to each other because they have the same eigenvalue of psi I is eigenfunction and psi j is also eigenfunction of the same operator A. The operator is a Hermitian operator, and if they have the same eigenvalue, then they may not be orthogonal. So that's why I write down the scalar product of psi and psi j. If these two eigenfunctions have the same eigenvalue, if they are degenerate, if they have a different eigenvalue, and then they are orthogonal to each other. So here you see psi I and psi j, they have the same eigenvalue. They are degenerate, and because they are degenerate, they are not orthogonal to each other. And if they are not orthogonal to each other, so I'm right. Please remember, if they are non-degenerate, if they have a different eigenvalue, then they are always orthogonal to each other. So I write down this here. Then here you see I write down this factor C1, C2, and this is basically a scalar product of psi j psi psi j psi. Here you write C1, C2 or C2, C1. It is one and the same thing. And this is again psi j and psi I is are not orthogonal to each other. So I write a scalar product of psi j with psi I C2 square. So this is a scalar product of psi I with psi j. This is a scalar product of psi j with psi I, and this is equal to 1. So now you simplify again. So this is C1 square, C2 square, and you see here I write down C1, C2, and this is C1, C2. So I am taking C1, C2 common. This is term number 2, this is term number 3, this is term number 4. So I combine the term number 2 and term number 3, and I'm taking C1, C2 common here. So I'm taking C1 square plus C2 square. This is C1, C2, and into the bracket, we have a scalar product of psi I with psi j, and we have a scalar product of psi j with psi I, right? You see, please remember this scalar product of psi I with psi j is not equal to scalar product of psi j with psi I, right? Please remember this. So this we are writing this step, and now you see this is already we have derived C1 equal to minus I2 psi ij. This is we have derived here. The first step, look at this reference. This is we have already derived C1 is equal to minus C2 psi I psi j. This we know this, so we substitute C1 there. Now once you know this equation, now let us try to understand. So this we are getting from equation 5. So I write down now C1, this C1 square. So this C1 is nothing but minus C2 into the scalar product of psi I with psi j. So I write down minus sign, there is a minus sign, please take care. So there is a minus sign C2, psi I psi j, and it is a whole square. So I am keeping a square. I'm keeping C2 as is equal to, you see this, right? And now you see here the factor, this factor, and this C1, this C1 I'm keeping this value. This C1 is equal to minus C2 psi I psi j. This is value of C1 which I'm substituted here, and this is psi 2. So this is psi, I'm sorry, this is C2. So I'm keeping C2 as it is, and this C1 is replaced by minus C2 scalar product of psi psi j from equation number 5. So you can see this product, and you see this parenthesis remain as it is. Scalar product of psi I with psi j, and scalar product of psi j with psi, and this is all is equal to 1, because this is the condition 1 which we are having, and this we are deriving from the condition that norm of psi k is 1. So this right hand side is 1. That's why this right hand side we are writing 1 here. So this is 1. So again you can see this factor, and now let us simplify this term. So you can say that this C2 square, uh, right, this minus sign, and becomes a whole square, so it becomes C2 square, and this is nothing but the square of this scalar product of psi I with psi j. This is C2 square, this is minus C2, and C2 into C2 gives you C2 square, and you have the scalar product of, because you see this psi I psi j is here, right? It's psi I psi j, and psi I psi j is gives you this, and you can see this is minus C2 square, scalar product of psi I psi j with psi j psi I. In this I'm opening this bracket, and once you open this bracket you get this term, and you see the term number 1, this is term number 2, term number 3, term number 1 and 3 are equal and having opposite sign. So these term number 1 and term number 3 cancels each other. So you can write now C1 square, right? C1 square minus. C2 square, because I'm taking common, you see C1 square minus C2, C2, this is C2 square. So this is C2 square, is C2 square minus C2 square psi I psi j psi is equal to 1. So this is your term number 2. Term number 3 is not there, term number 1 is not there, and the term number 4. So only term number 2 and term number 4 appears here. So I'm writing this equation here. I'm taking C2 square outside the bracket. So you have a 1 minus psi I psi j, scalar product of psi I psi j, and this is a scalar product of psi j psi is equal to 1. So you can have finally C2 square is equal to 1 over this bracket, which you can see here. So this is 1 upon 1 minus scalar product of psi I with psi j and a scalar product of psi j with psi I. So ultimately you take a square root both the sides, so you get C2 is equal to this. So C2 is equal to 1 over 1 minus a scalar product of psi I psi j, and you have a square root. So this is the value of C2. So we have calculated C2 in terms of psi I and psi j. Now we have already this condition with us. C1 is equal to minus C2 and scalar product of psi I with psi j. So now substitute C2 here. See, you can substitute C2 here. So when you substitute C2 here, so you see this psi I psi j is a numerator, so numerator is here, and C2 is 1 upon. So you can see this 1 upon. So this is 1 upon square root of 1 minus scalar product of psi I with psi j and scalar product of psi j with psi I. And this minus sign has remained as it is because this is C1 is minus C2. That's why this minus sign appears. So I calculated C1 is also in terms of psi I psi j. This is also I calculated in terms of psi I psi j. So ultimately my eigenfunction psi k, which was a linear combination of C1 psi I plus C2 psi j. So I calculated C1, I calculated C2 because we have a two-fold degeneracy. We have a two eigenfunctions having the same eigenvalue. That's why we have a two-fold degeneracy. So now I have my eigenfunction psi k, which we can construct now. So the eigenfunction psi k which we construct is C1 psi I plus C2 psi j. You put the value of C1, you see here, and this is psi I. So put the value of C1, that is equal to, now you see this psi k. So psi k equal to C1 psi I. So C1 psi I. So C1 you can put this value. So C1, this is C1. So C1 is this, you see, that is minus psi I psi j square root of 1 minus psi I psi j, and this is the scalar root of psi j. So this is the value of C1. So the value of C1 is kept here. You can look at this. The value of C1 is kept here. And you have psi I. So psi I is here. Now C2. So this is the C2. You have the value of C2. This is the value of C2. Look at this. So the value of C2 I have kept here 1 over square root of 1 minus scalar product of psi I psi j and psi j psi j, and you see this psi j remains into this is into psi j. So I calculated this eigenfunction psi k. So this psi k is now orthogonal to psi I, but it is not orthogonal to psi j. So this psi k is orthogonal to psi I. So now you can see these conditions. So this I can also rearrange this equation. We can also rearrange this equation, and you see the same equation I'm writing here. This is the same equation which I'm writing here, and now you can see this is the scalar product of psi j psi I. So we can use this relation, that scalar product of psi I psi j, scalar product of psi I with psi j is always equal to the scalar product of psi j psi I, and you take is complex conjugate because they don't commute with each other. So right. So this psi j, scalar product of psi I with psi j is equal to the scalar product of psi j psi I with a complex conjugate. So here I write down this equation as it is with this minus sign. Psi I psi j I am keeping as it is. But this is the scalar product of psi j psi I. So one can write it is a scalar product of psi j with psi I with psi j, and you take its complex conjugate. And similarly here also the same term psi j I'm keeping here. This is psi I psi j, I'm keeping psi I psi j as it is. And this is the scalar product of psi j psi I can be replaced by scalar product of psi I psi j with a complex conjugate. I'm using this rule which you know. So this is my eigenfunction, and now this is basically psi star. So it is a mod psi square you can write. So you can use this expression in this form. You can see the denominator is same, right? So I take psi j. This is my psi j because this is the positive sign. So I'm writing psi j minus. This is a minus sign, so I'm writing minus psi I psi j. It's a scalar product of psi I psi j with you multiply by psi I, and the denominator you see this term is basically mod of psi I psi j. You see psi I psi j. So this is the scalar product of psi I psi j and mod of the scalar product square. Because you know that psi star psi is always mod psi square. So I use that rule which you have studied. And please remember, so this is your eigenfunction psi k. This is the eigenfunction of your operator A, that is the Hermitian operator A, right? And this eigenfunction is now orthogonal to psi I. So because this psi k has the same eigenvalue, and that's why we have three eigenfunctions psi I, psi j, psi k. So psi I, psi j is not orthogonal to each other, but psi k and psi I are orthogonal to each other. So there is a method to find orthogonal eigenfunction of an Hermitian operator using this method. That is why this method is known as method of orthogonalization, where you have obtained a eigenfunction psi k which is orthogonal to psi I. So psi I and psi k are now orthogonal to each other. And this is a very important theorem, I would say, in quantum mechanics, that whenever you have the eigenfunctions, and if these eigenfunctions are degenerate eigenfunctions of an Hermitian operators, and if you require to prepare a set of, let's say, a orthogonal eigenfunctions, you can use Smith orthogonalization technique. This is the technique which is used for two-fold degeneracy. This can be extended for a three-fold degeneracy or a four-fold degeneracy, and for higher order degeneracy. Of course, this method becomes complex, but I can give you a homework that you take now three eigenfunctions of the Hermitian operator. Let us take psi I, psi j, and psi k. Please remember, I'm taking psi k. So you take psi I, psi j, psi k, and consider that these three eigenfunctions are basically degenerate eigenfunctions. They have the same eigenvalue. So psi I, psi j, psi k have the same eigenvalue, and they are not orthogonal to each other. And you find out a set of orthogonal eigenfunction for the case of threefold degeneracy. Because you have got three eigenfunctions having the same eigenvalue. I hope you will consider this problem for